is Mission Control. Everyone's watching those status panels here on the big screen in Mission Control. We've got the VIPs and we're here in our commentary box. This is a very special group of people we're looking at here, the Flight Directorate.
Yeah, headed by Jean-Yves Le Gall. This is a Flight Directorate cell. These are the highest Ariane-Space Authority, making all the important decisions we have to make in case of unplanned situations. Of course, this responsibility is for things that concern the launch vehicle.
So our two passengers are sitting comfortably on top of Ariane, hidden away from view underneath the fairing.
At the very top of the launcher, under the fairing, and very well protected from the outside environment of French Guiana.
And in a very carefully controlled, clean, air-conditioned environment. Ariane's job tonight is to boost those satellites into orbit. Over now to Véronique Loisel to fill us in about tonight's mission.
Tonight, Ariane's mission is to orbit two telecommunication spacecrafts. This launch takes place less than 1 month after the preceding one. The new SKYS 12 spacecraft, also dubbed NSS-12, is in the upper position. It was manufactured by Space System Loral in Palo Alto, in California, and will be delivered to the telecom operator SES World Skies. Its mass is roughly 5,620 kilos, and it is equipped with 88 transponders in C and Ku bands. NSS-12 will reinforce the operator's capacity in DTH and telecommunication services for Europe, Middle East, and Asia. For this flight, the spacecraft in lower position on Ariane 5 is THOR 6. THOR 6 was integrated by Thales Alenia Space in Cannes and would be delivered to Telenor Satellite Broadcasting. THOR 6 is based on a Spacebus 4000 B2 platform, and it is the second model to be launched on Ariane 5 after TUXA 3A. Thanks to its 36 high-powered transponders, the spacecraft will deliver to Telenor DTH services over Scandinavia, Central and East Europe. Tonight, its launch mass is about 3,050 kilos. In order to improve their lifetime, both spacecraft will be injected on an optimized geostationary transfer orbit with a 250 km perigee, a 35,786 km apogee, and a 6 degrees inclination with regards to the equator. Tonight, the launch window is 1 hour and 40 minutes. It will open at 8 p.m. in Universal Time, and that is to say 5 p.m. local time, and it will probably allow us to have a daylight launch.
And there they are, up there, going through the final operations for this 48th launch on an Ariane 5. What's happening to them right now, Jean-Michel?
Well, our two passengers are in the very, very final series of operation to get ready for the launch. Like some minutes ago, NSS-12 just switched to onboard power supply, and the THOR 6 satellite team is doing exactly the same right now.
And here we are back in Mission Control. Everyone's very calm. There's Véronique again. What's everybody doing here?
Well, here in Jupiter we have three groups of people, with Véronique and Christophe, the customer's representative, then the Flight Directorate cell with the Arianespace decision-making people, and the largest number of people here in Jupiter are representing the various systems manager from across the range. In fact, what you see here in simple terms would be like the tip of a huge pyramid of teams spreading all over the world.
And those teams have been working here in French Guiana at the Space Centre for about 2 months, getting Ariane ready for today's launch. We're going to find out now how they've been preparing.
The launch campaign began in early September in the Launcher Integration Building, 1 month before Flight 191. The campaign started with the erection of the main cryogenic stage in the Launcher Integration Building. Then, the solid booster stages were positioned on both sides of the main cryogenic stage. And finally, the upper composite, which comprises the upper cryogenic stage and the vehicle equipment bay, were installed. A series of functional tests were performed on both the electrical and fluid systems of the launcher. Then the campaign went on with the launcher transferred to the final assembly building. That's where the two payloads were installed in the vehicle equipment bay before the fairing was put in place. After the flight readiness review, Ariane 5 reached the launch zone for the final chronology operations today. I wish to thank the launch teams for their professional dedication and for the quality of their work.
And the Guyana Space Centre is a huge complex of buildings and facilities with 3 launch zones, and that's known as the range, which of course includes the downrange stations across the world. And for anybody who's not familiar with a spaceport, you could think of it as an airport, in which case the launcher would be the aeroplane and the satellites would be the passengers. Now this is launch control. It's under 3 kilometres from the pad. It's heavily protected, often known as the bunker.
Yeah, to continue with your comparison, that would be the cockpit of the plane, with the Arianespace people operating the launch vehicle remotely from here until just before the launch. The computers are mostly running all the final operations, coordinating the many checks and commands happening or having to happen in this very short period of time. To conclude with the synchronized sequence, which at the very end becomes fully automated. We have 2 teams working here, one guaranteeing the flight readiness of the vehicle, just like the technical engineer would do, and the other one carries out the launch campaign and final operations, just like the pilot would do it.
And here we are back to today. Ariane sending her status along with other systems across the range, and we can see all those various systems on the status panels. Here they are on the left-hand side, a little bit like the dashboard in a car.
Yes, indeed. And looking at this panel from the bottom to the top, first you see at the bottom our 2 passengers of tonight, NSS 12 and THOR 6. Then the launcher, Ariane, Ensemble de Lancement, which is the ground installation for the launcher. And then on top of that, what is here to the left, all the various elements of the range, going from the radars to the meteo, the weather forecast.
And mission control is known very fondly here as the Jupiter control room. It's about 15 kilometres from the launch zone. You could say it's a bit like the control tower at the airport.
Indeed, the job of the teams here is really to coordinate everything across the range and also for the passengers and the launcher. All systems send their status to mission control here, where they are synthesized for the final authorization to launch. The control towers would do the same, clearing the launch when all the conditions are met.
And the spaceport spans a huge area, actually, about 700 kilometres squared. So you can imagine that everybody needs to be receiving exactly the same information, which is why it's so important to have one central focal point in mission control. And of course, the man who coordinates all this is the range operations manager.
He would be like the boss of the control tower. He relays information throughout the flight also. We will hear that. He announced milestones. Don't forget the information goes up to the telemetry stations all across the world in Brazil and Africa. So everybody is listening for DDO's announcements.
You'll be hearing his voice throughout the flight. He says...
Attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
He says, of course, à tous de DDO.
Top. H0-7 minutes.
And that translated into English is listen up for the range operations director. So he's just announced a very important key milestone in the launch, the beginning of the synchronized sequence, the last 7 minutes.
Yeah, as I was saying before, now only computers are running and very fast, running a very packed series of commands and checks, switching progressively the launch vehicle from ground to flight configuration.
Let's go over now to the news from Arianespace. There were big celebrations on the 1st of October with yet another double success at the European spaceport when Ariane delivered 2 spacecraft on orbit. The Amazon S2 civil communications satellite for the Spanish operator Hispasat and the Comsat BW1 military communications satellite for the German Military of Defense represented the 33rd success in a row for Arianespace, underlining the importance of Ariane in guaranteeing European governments independent access to space. At the European Space Policy Conference on the 15th of October, the President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, emphasized Europe's ambitions in the conquest of space.
Space is also essential to project the image of the European Union as a world player. The European Space Agency and several European Union member states have an outstanding record of achievements, such as the Ariane launchers or the Columbus Laboratory of the International Space Station.
Astronauts gathered in South Korea in October for the 60th International Astronautical Congress, or IAC, and Ariane Space was there as one of the main sponsors, underlining its ongoing success in Asia. 30 years ago, the first ever Ariane lifted off from the Guyana Space Centre. And as a tribute to Europe's spaceport, those who were involved at the time relived their memories and visited today's modern installations. And this September also saw the 30th Ariane's Cup, a regatta organised this year by Ariane Space. 100 boats gathered in the old port of Marseille to take part in this 3-day competition, with participants from 30 different European companies involved in space. Congratulations to the winning team from Bauhaus Luftfahrt. Created in 1998, the Community of Ariane Towns, or CVA, brings together town halls whose industries are linked to the Ariane programme. This evening, Ariane's sporting the logo of one of the towns in Germany, Lampolthausen. And in November, the Ariane space ship, Le Colibri, will be leaving St. Petersburg for a 15-day voyage to transport the first 2 Soyuz launchers to Kourou. Also, work starting on the positioning of the Soyuz mobile gantry on the launch pad here in French Guiana. Exciting stuff. Now, we have a launch window tonight of 1 hour and 40 minutes. That means we have 1 hour and 40 minutes during which time we can launch. That's actually quite long, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. It's longer than the usual 40-45 minute window we have usually. And this is, in fact, directly coming from the spacecraft design. And in the case of tonight, both spacecraft, when including their various constraints mostly linked to the relative position of the Earth, the Sun and the orbit, came to the result of that the combined window can be extended very, very largely, and we have 1 hour 40 minutes to potentially recycle in case of an unplanned event. But we are not there. Everything is green, everything is running.
Now, this was yesterday. This is what we call the rollout. It's when we transfer Ariane from the building where she was assembled to the launch pad very slowly.
Yeah, as you see, the launch vehicle with on top the 2 satellites, the 2 passengers under the fairing, is rolled out of the final assembly building very slowly on rail tracks, hauled by the small blue truck, and it goes from the final assembly building to the launch pad where it sits right now. This operation took place, as you said, yesterday. And it's a very carefully planned operation during which even the launch vehicle and the spacecraft customer never lose contact with their spacecraft. They are always in contact with the babies, even during the transfer.
And some lovely images there of the Amazon rainforest as she went through. Take a look at the top of the vehicle. You can see those cryotechnic arms coming out from the tower connecting to the top of the launcher. They're feeding cryotechnic fuel to the upper stage of the vehicle. You can see them connecting there. Now, cryotechnic fuel is liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen stored at extremely low temperatures.
Yes, to the left of the image you have the liquid hydrogen cryotechnic arm and the plates attached to the upper stage, and to the right the liquid oxygen plates. And this arm will be opened just some seconds before liftoff to free the launcher for liftoff.
So keep an eye out for that. Also, a couple of other things to keep an eye open for just before launch. There's a 7-second gap between the ignition and liftoff.
Yeah, this is the way we proceed. We ignite the Vulcan engine first, and then we take some 7 seconds to make sure it's functioning properly. And then only we light the boosters, and then we have the actual liftoff. And at that moment, there is nothing we can do to hold her in place.
No, because the boosters are the ones that do all the work at that point. We're coming up.
De DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
Coming up to 1 minute there. All electrical systems being switched to flight mode.
Top, H0 moins 1 minute.
We're live at the Guyana Space Center for the launch of an Ariane 5 ECA. We're orbiting 2 passengers tonight, NSS 12 and THOR 6. Welcome if you're just joining us. Our very best wishes to SES World Skies and Telenor Satellite Broadcasting, and to everybody who's worked so very hard to bring us to today's launch. Let's sit back now